Okay, so the systems we've talked about so far are the circulatory, which transports food and oxygen, waste products, any chemicals that are in your body. It's going to be through that transport system there. And it works in conjunction, obviously, with the digestive system, because your digestive system has to get the food into small enough pieces so that it can actually be absorbed by the cells. And the digestive system doesn't go to your fingers, does it? So how do your fingers, the cells that make up your fingers, get food? It's got to have some way to transport those food pieces to your cells all over your body, and that's the function of the circulatory system. The endocrine system works in conjunction with this too, because they're going to be controlling your whole body throughout years and years and years through chemicals called hormones. They turn things on, they turn things off at different times throughout your lifetime. At some point, my hair's barely starting to turn gray up here. They're turning off the melanin that makes up the color in the hair. So there are different hormones that do different jobs. And so all these chemicals that are going to be put out are going to be, again, transported around through the circulatory system. And these hormones impact every system that you could possibly have. The respiratory system, when you look down here towards the bottom, I'm kind of jumping around on this. The respiratory system, if the circulatory system transports oxygen and carbon dioxide, it's got to pick it up from somewhere. So your lungs are very vascular. When I say vascular, that means they've got lots of blood vessels on them. Really, really vascular. And so these blood vessels just coat the lungs, and diffusion happens. Oxygen that you breathe in goes from the little alveoli in the lungs into your capillaries, and the carbon dioxide diffuses out of the capillaries back into there, and you blow it back out. All this happens constantly, all the time. Every time you breathe, that's going to happen. Diffusion just naturally happens. And so you're going to keep doing that. Okay, so let's see. Which system did we write down last? Let's go with endocrine system. After the endocrine system, that endocrine system, it says that it's going to control growth and development responses. There's another system that controls your responses. Just pick up right here. We left a little space here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and then number 1 to 11, and skip a line, everyone. So the nervous system is what I'm going to jump to next, because when we talk about endocrine controlling or helping to control the body, I'm going to jump down here to nervous. So the nervous system, both of these systems control the body. It's just that they control them in different ways. The endocrine system, for the most part, reacts a little bit slower. The nervous system is the one that reacts really, really quickly to your immediate surroundings, right? If I turn the light on, it's real bright, all of a sudden what happens? Yeah, you kind of blink your eyes a little bit because you're responding to that light. And what happens to your pupils? Do they get bigger or smaller? Smaller on there. So that gives you an immediate response. It's going to control that reaction that you have here. Like, it's a little bit cold in here. If you shiver, that's going to be put out by the nervous system there too. So the nervous system is responsible. It intakes, interprets, and responds to your environment. Intakes. If I call it info, you guys know what that is, right? Intakes, interprets, and responds to your environment. And when I say intake, I'm talking about information. It intakes information, it interprets that information, and then it allows you to respond. Sometimes your response is nothing. The floor that you're standing on is stable. Your body already knew that. It took it in. The information was taken in by the nervous system, and there was no response to you, right? I mean, you just assumed it was going to be like that. There was no overt response. And yet there are things that your body does automatically. Don't even think about it. If the floor were unstable, then you would have some kind of response, right? Because you expect it to be stable. So it takes in the information and interprets it. So when we say intake, think of, I don't know how much you guys have learned about the nervous system in the past. You have receptor neurons, and their job is to intake the information. Yes? Then you have neurons that transfer it from those receivers to those that respond or to the brain. So you have a pathway. You take in the information, you take that information up to your brain. The brain is responsible, those neurons in the brain are responsible for interpreting the information. And then it sends out a response and says, okay, here's how you're going to respond to that. Sometimes, again, the response is nothing. It's just, yeah, it's there. Sometimes the response is really in-depth. Sometimes the response is so fast you don't even have to think about it. When we talk about reflexes, when you respond to something quickly, like when someone's walking along, you almost bump into, you jerk automatically before you even realize what's going on. That's that instinctive response, or we think it almost as a reflex response. You have parts of your brain. This big part of your brain is what you think of as your personality, your thinking, your conscious part of your brain. There's the brain stem that controls your heartbeat, your breathing, and it also controls your reflex responses. So someone could be in a coma, depending on how bad the situation is. They could be in a coma and they can still have reflexes. So you guys you do your reflexes before. As you're sitting there at your chair, cross your legs. So cross your legs, just put one on top of the other, and try and get that top leg to relax as much as possible. Okay, it's got to be just laying over this. Okay, try and get it to relax as much as possible. And if you'll take the side of your hand, there's a dent right here. Here's your tibia right here, and then your patella's right here. Somewhere in there, there's a little dent, and you can find it if you just hit. You don't have to hit hard, but you'll find that where that nerve is, and your leg's gonna pop up. That can happen even if someone's in a coma. They can have that response because that requires the hindbrain, the medulla oblongata, that brainstem, to do that. And you just have to kind of work at it and find where that spot is, and you have to relax. If it's not relaxed, it's not going to work. So you have to kind of mess around and figure out where is that. And you can feel it. It's kind of like when you hit your funny bone. That's hitting a nerve in there too. So you have to find out where those nerves are in there. They usually have that. They usually have that little rubber hammer that they use to check your responses. It's just easier. They get tired of using stuff like that. But you can find it when you run along your wrist right up in here. There's an area where you can find the nerve and automatically pulls up. One of the things they do when you have a newborn is there's this thing called a Babinski. Yeah, named after that. A Babinski reflex response. And if they take their finger and rub it up the baby's foot curls. And so they know that, oh yeah, the nerves are working there. So they'll do a little bitty test like that on the baby when it's a newborn so they can check and see that everything's working properly. That's that nervous system. So you have what we call the peripheral nervous system, all the things on your arms and legs and stuff like that, and then you have the central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord. Nerves don't grow back very well. Neurons don't grow back very well, although there are some cases where it can. It's really, really difficult for them to grow back. As a child is younger, it's easier for the nerves to grow back if it's damaged when they're younger. As you get older, it's more and more difficult for those nerves to grow back. So nerve damage is a really, really bad thing. Okay, so the nervous system is going to intake information from your environment, it's going to interpret it, and it's going to do a response to that environment. Okay? One of those responses typically involves movement. And so let's go to the muscular system. So the muscular system, I mean, really, it only takes one word. We're going to say movement here. But I'm going to add on here, it's not just your skeletal muscles. There are skeletal muscles that are attached to bones, right? There is smooth muscle, which is your organs, small intestine, large intestine. And there's cardiac muscle. What is that one? So when we talk about movement, it's not just movement of your bones, although that's a big deal, right? Over 600 muscles in the body. If you're interested in medicine, you're going to learn those. That's just muscles. Now, a lot of times we just focus on the surface ones, or the ones that give us the most issue, the biggest problems, but that's not always the case, especially if you're going to be like a sports doctor or someone working in the sports field. Trainer or something like that, you've got to know a lot of different things, not just the muscles, but what about all those little tendons and ligaments that hold the bones together or hold the muscles onto the bone. So those are going to be really important there too. So movement, when we talk about movement, it's not just movement on a big scale or a little scale riding, it's also the movement of the intestines. Your intestines are constantly moving. You don't sit there and think, move, intestine, move. It's going to happen no matter what. It's an uncontrolled response. It naturally, instinctively happens. You don't have control over that. So as it moves, basically you swallow food, and throughout the day, the small intestine is going to be squeezing really slowly. Kind of like a snake squeezing stuff down. That's kind of like what it does, only it's really, really slow as it happens. So it's going to take about 24 hours when you eat something to the time it leaves your whole digestive system. So that movement, it's happening, but it's really, really slow. Your heart, you don't have to sit there and think about your heart beating. It's going to happen. It's involuntary. We don't necessarily have control of it, although you can sit there and if your heart's racing, you can kind of sit there and be really calm and think calming thoughts, and it can slow it down some, right? You can meditate. People meditate, they do that stuff. Yeah. So we have the muscular system. But you can't have the muscular system without looking at the skeletal system. So find your bottom S there, the skeletal system. Let's go with baby poop brown. And we have the skeletal system. So the skeletal system, and this obviously you've got the bones here. And we have movement, right? We have to have the bones in order to move. We are not built like worms. Worms don't have an internal skeleton at all. They have muscles, but they're circular muscles. So when they move, it's kind of like they scrunch up and they move one in, they scrunch up and move like this. It's a different kind of motion than what we have. So we have a different type of movement. It's also there for protection, right? And makes red blood cells. Can I call those RBCs again? Red blood cells? So we have a lot of jobs for the skeletal system. It's not just a one-thing job. It does more than one job. If we talk about protection, this is not, we've already talked about the circulatory system, but this is not the only system in the body that protects you. What else is another system in your body that protects you? Immune system. Let me see, that would be the first I, immune system, number 5. The immune system, the job of the immune system is to fight disease. That's the first job, or a job. And you guys, I'm sure you've studied some where it's, the white blood cells, the helper T cells, yes, no, yeah, you've heard of some of that stuff. So you've got different types of cells that will work in different ways. There are some white blood cells that all they do is they eat stuff. So if there's a bacteria, something that they come across, they just engulf it and eat it and digest it. Yeah, that's what they do. They crawl around. These cells are really cool because they're not just floating around in your bloodstream, although they get pushed around a lot. They can also crawl around on their own, kind of like little amoebas almost. They can crawl into the spaces between the cells and see what's out and about there. So they can crawl all over the place. They're really weird. There are some that will bump into any foreign object and they recognize the chemicals on the outside of the white blood cells recognize certain viruses, the chemicals on the outside of the viruses. And so once you've had, you guys never had measles, did you? You had vaccines against those, right? So let's say when I was a kid I had the measles. And that virus that causes the measles, I'm never going to get it again because I have memory cells, those white blood cells. We have memory cells in there that all they do is float around looking for that virus. And anytime I come into contact with that virus, they immediately attack it. So we've got a system set up to do that. Any type of the virus. There are several types of flu viruses. You know how we get flu virus shots and every year you can get a different strain of the flu? The flu that you've already had the strains of, you're immune to those. You're not going to get those again. In most cases, the immunity lasts throughout your life. There are some cases where the immunity is maybe several years and then maybe it pops up again. But in most cases, once your own body has fought off a disease, you've had the disease, you fought it off, then you're immune to that disease. It's kind of cool that it works that way. Viruses especially work that way. Bacteria, not so much. So you can get strep throat, which is caused by bacteria, over and over and over and over again. You can get pneumonia, which is caused by bacteria, over and over. It's the viruses. Viruses are just really chemicals with protein with nucleic acid on the inside. They're just weird. Those are the ones that your body recognizes and says, oh, hey, yeah, we know you. And they take it apart. They just engulf it or they break it apart and break it up. So we can fight disease from viruses and bacteria. We can also deal with injury. So the immune system deals with injury. Because when you cut yourself on, even if you get a paper cut, have you guys gotten a paper cut before? Paper cuts always hurt, don't they? You've got a paper cut before, and don't those, I mean, the next day it'll be really tender and sore. Sometimes it'll turn red and get infected, and it's a stupid little paper cut. Well, your body is still trying to deal with that, because when you sliced yourself with a piece of paper, all the germs that were on the edge of that paper are now inside your skin. You've gone through the barrier of your skin, and you've put it inside there. And so your body now has to fight that off. In the vast majority of times, you don't even have to use medication. Isn't your body going to fight that off and it'll heal? Yeah. Unless you have a compromised immune system or some other problem, it's going to take care of it on its own. Your immune system really deals with any type of injury. That's stuff from the outside, or where the skin didn't even break at all, stuff from the inside too. Let's say, again, you twisted your ankle. You came up the stairs and fell part way up and you twisted your ankle. So you've got some torn tissue on the inside of your ankle. Your immune system is also going to deal with that too. So it's going to deal with a lot of different types of injury. It's going to enable you to fight disease. You have this immune system. It's just spread throughout the body. There's not just one place. The white blood cells, WBCs, the white blood cells are roaming all the way around in your bloodstream. And then you also have lymph nodes. You have lots of lymph nodes throughout your body. The easiest ones to find are the ones in your throat. You guys ever notice here that when you're trying to fight off disease, it swells up right here? There's knots right here. There are two pretty good sized lymph nodes right here. And when you're trying to fight something off, they swell up a little bit, because what they do is they sift all the stuff, the crap that's in your bloodstream that can't just urinate out or anything. They try and catch that stuff. They'll catch bacteria, they'll catch viruses in there, they'll catch all sorts of clutter that's in there. You have lymph nodes that we feel often right here, and then sometimes when you're sick, have you noticed even under your arms it's sore? You've got two big lymph nodes up in there too, and then they're all spread throughout the body in the intestine. They're all just all in various places around the body too. So, and all of those are cleaning out your blood, getting rid of bacteria. They're getting rid of, like if you sprained that ankle, you've got pieces of cells that are torn. They clean that stuff up out of your blood and out of your system to do that. Now, along with the immune system, we've got our body's first line of defense, which would be what? First line of defense keeps everything out. The integumentary system. Yeah, so right here, the other eye, integumentary. Oh, I already used that color. What was I thinking? Let's use this one. That looks the same to me. Integumentary, what is that also known as? Skin. This is your body's first line of defense. Against disease, against injury. You have this layer of dead stuff. This layer of dead stuff constantly. And it's constantly being replaced. You're growing this whole layer of skin. It's all dead. All that you can see is dead, with the exception of your eyes, yeah, inside your mouth. You can actually see inside your mouth, so there are live cells there too. But it's this barrier between you and the environment. Have you guys ever slid across the gym floor and you got one of those strawberries? Do you call it strawberry? So what do you call it? Carpet burn, rug burn, something like that. Anyway, it scrapes the skin off, so you have live cells under there. You notice how that burns? That's because you have live cells that are exposed to the air. And pain is your body's way of saying, hey, stupid, something's wrong. Seriously. If it hurts, it means there's something wrong. Stop doing it. You know, sometimes I remember teaching 7th grade, and I just wanted to smack people. Were you guys, I don't know if you guys did stupid stuff like this. They would take the eraser into their pencil, and they would rub over it. Did you guys, people went through that? You just want to slap people for being stupid, right? If it hurts, it's your body's way of saying, stop it, you're messing me up. So when you peel off that layer of dead skin, really, people are stupid, don't do that. You peel off that layer of dead tissue and you have live cells exposed. And they're not going to survive. You expose live cells, they're going to die. One of the big things is they have to, those cells have to die because they have to stay in a moist environment. They're going to die. One of the big issues with people who have burns over a large portion of their body is not that it's damaged internal organs or anything. It's that they've peeled off all the dead cell layer, so all of their living cells are exposed and they're wet, right? You can lose a lot of water. For someone who's burned, one of their big things is dehydration. It's difficult to keep the moisture in them. They can't survive that way because all of their skin is, the dead stuff is taken off, and the only way to keep those cells alive is to keep them moisturized and coated. And if not, they're losing that moisture. It's like losing, instead of just losing moisture out of your mouth and a little bit on your hands and stuff, you lose it all over your body, and it's crazy. It's really, really unhealthy for you at all. So we have the integumentary system. It's not just the body's first line of defense, though. We also excrete wastes through our skin. Through our sweat. That's a part of it, yeah. We excrete waste, and then you guys know the purpose of sweat. We modify our temperature through the sweat. I mean, the whole purpose of sweat, number one purpose of sweat, is to lower the body temperature, right? Because we need to maintain. We maintain about 98 degrees. If you get too hot, you can actually fry the brain. That's why when little kids have a fever, you have to be really careful and watch it, right? Because it can cook the cells. So you keep it cool. If they sweat, it tends to help cool that off there. So that's not the only job of the sweat. The sweat's also going to be there to get rid of some things that your body can't get rid of elsewise. So I don't come from a very nice family. I come from a family that, yeah, okay, so my family, that had some family members that were alcoholics. And you could tell for several days when they had gotten drunk, I mean, not slinging drunk where they passed out. If you were around them within the next couple of days, even if they bathed, you could smell the alcohol in their system. You can smell when someone's been on a drunk or whatever it is, but you can smell the alcohol because it's not just getting rid of it through the urine, it's also getting rid of it through the sweat. Something a little bit less obnoxious than that. My husband, he loves garlic. I had to ban garlic from the house because he would buy the container of garlic. He just likes it on food, and he would eat tons of it so that the next 3 days he'd stink of garlic. It's like, holy crap, what are you thinking? And he didn't smell it because he was, it was him all the time, but it would come out. You eat so much of something, it'll come out your pores. A lot of times that's why we think different. If you go to different cultures, different countries, the smells are slightly different. It's not that people stink, it's that we're accustomed to a certain odor because of the types of food we eat. When you go someplace where the whole food sources are changed up, when the spices are changed up, you have totally different underlying base smells of people. So it's interesting to see what the smells of. And just when you think, oh, well, I went to Sri Lanka in India and they stunk. No, they thought you stunk. Yeah? So it's not them smelling, it's just a different odor that's there because of, especially spices. When you eat lots of spices and stuff, you'll see that. I have my nephew married a girl whose family's from Lebanon, and they use cinnamon a lot in their food. So, and it's not like sweet stuff. It's like on a hamburger. She made this hamburger dish, and it was just coated with cinnamon. Really interesting flavor. But again, if you use a lot of that, that's going to come out. You're going to smell that in your body. So that integumentary system is not just for protecting, it's also for helping to get rid of wastes. And then that leads us to another one. And let's look at the second E up here. Number 4, the excretory system. Excretory system, number one job of the excretory system is it cleans the blood and gets rid of waste. liquid wastes. Cleans the blood and gets rid of liquid wastes. So which system got rid of the solid waste? Digestive system got rid of the solid waste. The excretory system is going to get rid of the urine, the liquid waste. So when we say liquid waste, we're talking about urine. So the job of your kidneys, the kidneys are really saturated with blood vessels too. They're very vascular. And so all of the blood has to go through your kidneys at some point. And the red blood cells and white blood cells in chunks, they are filtered out, and all the clear, the plasma part, gets run through the kidneys and sifts some of that stuff out. And it gets put back in. What your body wants to keep, it gets put back in the bloodstream. What it wants to get rid of, it forms urine, and that's what you get rid of that way. Now, there's one system left on here. And I could have hooked that up with the endocrine system, because the endocrine system and the other R, the reproductive system, go hand in hand. You guys know that too. Okay, so the last one, number 9, the reproductive system. Okay. The reproductive system, what's the number one job of the reproductive system? Yep. Produce offspring. Now, the reproductive system, it's not just making babies, it's also development of secondary sex characteristics, so it's the growth too. So you could also put in here growth and development. So it goes hand in hand with the endocrine system. So growth and development too. So all of these systems are intertwined. There's not just a system all by itself that's solely alone, all on its own over there. They are all intertwined in there. They all respond together. So when you look up here at the teak, it says, and I'm going to pull this back just a second, which systems that perform the functions of regulation, nutrient absorption, and reproduction? Defense against injury. So look at this. Defense against injury. We have the immune, the integumentary. Those are two big dogs right there. Yeah? Reproduction, we've got reproductive system and the endocrine system. We've got regulation, which it throws in the endocrine system again, the excretory. It regulates the amount of water in the body. They're all intertwined in this. You know, the teak says, describe the interactions that occur among these things. They are all interacting. They might ask you a very specific question like which system works with the nervous system to move the body. Well, you're going to say it's the muscular system works in conjunction with that, right? So they're going to focus on specific systems, but in reality, they all function together. They're so intertwined. When one system is failing, it's going to hit all the systems. So it's going to have a major problem there. So let me stop this.